I read this novel that I adapted, Erasure by Percival Everett, and like I fell in love with it almost as soon as I started reading it. It just sort of felt the material deep in my core. Like no piece of art has resonated with me as deeply before or since. And so I knew almost immediately that I wanted to adapt it. And I knew that I wanted to write the script because that's what I'd been doing. I'd been working as a TV writer for about 6 years when I found this book. And then the more that I read, I started reading the novel in Jeffrey Wright's voice. That's sort of like how quickly I started thinking of Jeffrey to be in this movie. And then the more that I read, I was like, oh, maybe I should direct this. And I think that the reason why I wanted to direct this, the reason that I felt comfortable doing that was I told myself if I go on set, every day if I go on set, and I know nothing about lighting and I know nothing about cameras, I at least know this story like in my bones. The story of the film is an author named Monk Ellison who feels pigeonholed when it comes to his role as a black artist in the world, and feels like there are rigid restrictions on what people say he can and cannot write. And so, to fight back against these restrictions, he pulls a prank and writes a novel called My Pathology that contains all of these black stereotypes that he sort of resents. And then he intends to send this book to publishers in order to shame them for the kinds of material that they solicit from black writers. He anticipates that this book is going to be a piece of performance art in which all these white publishers are embarrassed about the work that they solicit, and it ends up becoming a massive bestseller. I just think that Jeffrey has this real air of gravitas around him at all times. He seems professorial in a very real way. And I also think that he had the ability to play like a lovable grump. I think that that's a very difficult part to play because I think that if you err too far on the side of grump, you lose people and nobody wants to root for you anymore. And so I think Jeffrey um, had this really nice blend of kind of like professorial gravitas and maybe a little prickliness along with it, but also the ability to sort of, you know, keep you rooting for him, sort of like a softness and an relatability that sort of like keeps you on his side throughout the course of the film. I also think that he's a really funny comedic actor. I think that obviously people know him for his dramatic turns, and he's obviously great in all those, but I sort of I anticipated that he was going to be like a really funny um, comedic actor and a perfect kind of straight man for all the absurdity that's going around him in the rest of the movie. He was really a collaborative person to work with, and he sort of really wanted to get in the weeds with me on the character and on the film and the scenes. And he was just, you know, I sort of had anticipated that he might be this kind of, you know, because he has every right to be kind of this standoffish, sort of like I'm an incredible thespian, and so. But he wasn't that way at all. He just came in and was super enthusiastic about working with me and the rest of the actors and sort of finding the scenes and finding the film. So, yeah, I will. I'm forever grateful to him for that. One of the keys to, I think, making a lovable grump work on screen is surrounding him with people who love him despite his grumpiness, right? And so I think that you sort of teach the audience that uh, as sort of pugnacious and kind of prickly as this character is, there are people who are not that way who love him and sort of like can see the good side of him, and that kind of teaches the audience like, oh, okay, if they like this guy, then maybe I should like this guy. It's sort of like when when your friend introduces you to one of their friends and you're like not sure about this, but you really like your friend and you're like, okay, if my friend likes this person, then there's probably something good here that I should pay attention to. And so surrounding Monk with characters who were much more effervescent and buoyant and joyous than him was, I think, a sort of like key toward letting the audience in and sort of like helping the audience to root for Monk more, right? Is that they're like, you're like, oh, Coraline, who's like lovely and vivacious and formidable, she loves Monk, and Cliff, his brother, who's like really sort of like a bundle of energy and joy and happiness. He loves Monk, um, and so I can see a way to love Monk. Centaura Golden is Issa Rae, and she is Monk. Although sort of like it's a very one-sided dynamic, Monk really resents Centaura's success and resents the work that she makes. He thinks that it's beneath him to sort of like do the kind of writing that Centaura does. But Centaura doesn't really know that Monk exists until later in the movie. So it's a very uh, it's just kind of impotent rage that Monk feels towards Centaura. She kind of embodies everything that he thinks is wrong with black art right now. Sterling K. Brown plays Cliff Ellison, Monk's brother, who's recently come out of the closet as gay and is recently divorced from his wife and is estranged from his two children and is kind of going through a classic midlife crisis where he's trying to figure himself out and figure out what he wants to do with the rest of his life. And his sister is played by Tracee Ellis Ross, um, who's a reproductive doctor in Boston, and is taking care of their mother, who is suffering from symptoms of Alzheimer's, and she's kind of, she's basically the kind of glue that's holding the family together at this point. The brothers have kind of drifted away. The mother, she's the only one who lives in their hometown with their mother, who's suffering from this debilitating illness. And so she's kind of taken it upon herself to keep the family bonded, despite the fact that they're all kind of going in their separate ways. I hope audiences take away from this film a smile. That's all. That's all I want them to take away from it. I think that I'd never wanted this movie to be didactic or feel like it was, giving people moral lessons. I think that I don't want to. To me, the intention of the movie is to give you a series of scenes and characters and situations and allow you to make your own decisions about it. I think that to me is really keeping with the spirit of the novel that I adapted. The novel itself doesn't try to offer any solutions or answers. It's sort of more about asking questions, and to me, that's what I wanted to maintain in the film was the essence of the novel in that way. And so, I just want people to come in and have a good time and enjoy themselves. Something that's been really, really heartening to me is the number of people who have told me that like, as soon as I got like, as soon as I got out of the theater, I like rushed to like talk to a friend who had seen the movie too, so that I could talk to them about it and sort of like go to dinner with them and talk about it. Or I turned to the person that I went to see the movie with and said, "Do you want to go get a drink and talk about the movie?" Like that to me is all that I really want people to take away from the film is something that they want to turn over in their minds a little bit after having this sort of hopefully a joyful experience for the past couple hours.